As if deporting good, hardworking immigrants wasn't enough. Revoking temporary protective status for 500,000 Venezuelans wasn't enough.
This is a bad idea, this is a bad idea, this is a bad idea.
Maybe RFK Jr. can fix that.
But there's...
The View hosts are enraged over Donald Trump's consistent victories and have just exposed their own hypocrisy in their latest meltdown. They devoted an entire segment to expressing their anger, twisting the issue to portray it as yet another reason to criticize America. Let's be honest, they seem to thrive on disparaging their own country. But in an unexpected twist, Sunny Hostin, while attacking Trump, inadvertently ended up endorsing RFK Jr. What was the audience's response? They booed her. Yes, the same audience that eagerly claps like trained seals at every anti-Trump remark suddenly turned on her for deviating from the script. But first, let's look at Ana Navarro, who somehow took Trump's policy on Mexico personally. She was furious that Trump threatened Mexico with tariffs, and then took it even further into absurdity, playing into racial stereotypes. She whined about the rising price of her tequila, blaming Trump for the increase. Watch how she dramatizes the situation.
These are the people who vote with us in the international organizations. These are the people who send soldiers to go to war with us when we are fighting, in the Middle East, when we're fighting any sort of war. Canada sends its soldiers. These are the people that have been by us time and time again, that send their pilots and their planes to help us put out our fires, literally and figuratively. These are our friends, and we are treating them like trash. We are bullying them. And it's as if, I look at this thing in Mexico and I'm thinking, okay, as if deporting good, hardworking immigrants wasn't enough. As if emboldening the racial profiling and bigotry against Latinos wasn't enough. As if revoking temporary protective status for 500,000 Venezuelans wasn't enough. As if bullying Panama wasn't enough. Now he's going to tax our tequila and avocados?
Yeah.
Let's get real for a moment. I just don't understand the logic behind the left's obsession with allowing Canada and Mexico to take advantage of the U.S. simply because we've historically been allies. Look at what's happening. The migrant crisis is pouring through Mexico's borders straight into the U.S., and the fentanyl epidemic is being fueled by cartels operating in Mexico, flooding American cities. And yet, year after year, we continue to run a $100 billion trade deficit with these countries, and somehow we're the bad guys for suggesting that if we're going to keep enriching you, maybe it's time to step up border security so our citizens stop dying. It's the same democratic hypocrisy we've seen for years. The left always tries to act compassionate, but their actions tell a different story. Just look at their stance on illegal immigration. They openly advocate for illegal migrants to stay and work under horrible conditions, picking crops for slave wages. They argue things like, "Who will pick our vegetables?" as if that's some great defense of their policies. But here's the kicker. It sounds eerily similar to what Democrats were saying in the 1850s about slavery. They don't even realize the connection. They're pushing for trafficked migrants to cross into America under dangerous conditions, only to be exploited, working long hours for almost no money, with no legal protection, all to maintain cheap labor and lower food prices. And yet they call themselves the party of compassion. Like almost everything Democrats do in their attempts to appear virtuous and morally superior, their policies always end up being more harmful, more racist, and more destructive than the problems they claim to be fixing. But don't worry, we're just getting started. The View had plenty more to say, and it only gets worse from here. Stay tuned for the next meltdown.
And I'll just say, Mexico, Canada, and China together accounted for more than 40% of total U.S. imports last year. But more importantly, Canada and Mexico are the top buyers of U.S. exports in more than 72% of all export categories. 72%. We send our stuff over there. So now if there are these tariffs, that's going to cause problems, billions of dollars of problems. And if the tariffs, if they are in turn return the tariffs, let's say it's your coffee, you have a coffee store, and you're going to sell a cup of coffee, and your coffee is $5. We know how expensive coffee is, right? Yeah. You sell coffee for $5. Now the coffee beans coming in from Mexico are now $5 more. You think if I own that shop, I'm going to eat that $5? No. Your cup of coffee just costs $10.
Well,
and that's the deal.
Sunny,
Sunny Hostin's latest blunder is proof that college can sometimes be a scam. Now here comes Sunny saying one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. And don't forget, folks, this is the college-educated lawyer speaking. She claims that your $5 cup of coffee, when hit with a 25% tariff, will now cost $10. Let that sink in for a second. She's the poster child for why college can be a complete scam. College hands out degrees to people who can't even grasp basic economics, and it makes them feel smarter than everyone else. It's like a participation trophy for getting a degree. Then they strut around acting like they know everything, with a superiority complex that leads them to believe they're better than the rest of us. Every time they mention that Kamala Harris won the educated vote, I can't help but think of Sunny Hostin. It doesn't sound as impressive when you phrase it like this. Kamala Harris won the Sunny Hostin IQ vote. People often ask me why I watch The View, and here's the answer. Because they present themselves as a credible news talk show. But this is the reality. This is what the other side is hearing. This is where they're getting their information, and it's crucial we understand that. We need to either help educate those around us or fight back against this rampant stupidity. Art of War, Lesson 1, Know Your Enemy. If The View was just a mimosas and brunch feel-good gossip show, I wouldn't waste a second watching it. But the problem is they try to pass themselves off as a legitimate news source. They sit down with real politicians and pretend to have serious discussions about political issues. When people on the left see them sit with a senator, they must assume it's a solid source of information, which leads them to get brainwashed and radicalized by the propaganda these hosts are pushing. That's why it matters. People are drinking the Kool-Aid they're serving up, and it's turning them into something dangerous to democracy. Now, Whoopi Goldberg, our resident philosopher of nonsense, decides to drop some ancient wisdom on why we're actually the bad guys for asking our neighbors to be better neighbors. Watch.
And Canadian citizens showed how they felt about these tariffs at NBA and NHL games over the weekend. Take a look. I've never seen anything like that in my life.
Never.
I'm sorry. And I have to say, even the conservative media is warning about the price Americans are going to pay for this. So, I mean, everybody's saying, hey, this is a bad idea, this is a bad idea, this is a bad idea.
This right here is the entire problem with the virtue signaling left. They're obsessed with making sure everyone likes us. They need the world to think we're kind, compassionate, and morally superior, even if that means getting walked all over.
As news of her
I
ancestors
don't think
being
even a high
slave
schooler
owners
cares this
broke.
much about what random people think of them. So, according to Whoopi, we shouldn't ask Canada and Mexico to improve their border security or address the trade imbalance to make things a little more mutually beneficial. Nope, because that might hurt someone's feelings. And if that means some salty Canadians start booing our national anthem, well, I guess we're just supposed to sit back and take it. Oh no, how will we ever recover? But here's the thing. The NHL and NBA are majority American leagues. If they hate us so much just because we asked for fair deals, why don't they leave? Why don't they start their own hockey league or basketball? League? I mean, those are their sports, right? Oh wait, they like the money that comes from being buddy-buddy with America. So now that we have a president who actually stands up for us instead of letting us get ripped off, they don't want to be our friends anymore. Funny how that works. It was only cool when we were the ones getting screwed over. And honestly, if that's how they feel about us, then they were never our friends to begin with. Think about it this way. If I had a friend who only stuck around because I paid for his food, his rides, his fun, and then the moment I asked him to chip in just a little, he suddenly made me the bad guy, yeah, I'd drop that freeloader so fast. Now, here comes Alyssa talking about Trump cutting foreign aid, and usually she's pretty spot on, but in this moment, she's dead wrong. Watch.
And what makes America the most powerful nation on earth is that we have friends and allies. And it's because we engage in international trade, we don't bully our friends, we show up and give international aid. And if we stop doing that, which is what I feel like Trump is leaning into, I'm not saying that that's fully what he's doing yet, we're ceding our role of global superpower to China because they will step in, they will show up, and they will be friends to the people that we're giving not a nice signal to in Canada and elsewhere.
Now, this is the peak of the episode where Whoopi Goldberg talks about why countries don't accept our foreign exports because our food is full of crazy pesticides. And this is where Sunny Hostin accidentally endorses RFK, causing the crowd to boo her. Watch.
Also like to point out that there is a reason people don't really take a lot of our things that we export, because the quality of what we put out has not always been the best. When we look at what's in our foods, other countries won't accept food from us if it's chock full of the stuff that
preservatives and shelf
we allow
stabilizers.
to go through. So you can talk about making American and building American, but that also requires that we make big changes as to how we do things.
Maybe RFK Jr. can fix that.
But
That's what you call a Freudian slip. Yeah, that's exactly why we need RFK, because our food sucks, it's poisoning the citizens, and no other country wants to take it. But they've been so brainwashed into repeating that RFK is bad and dangerous, that when she accidentally let some common sense slip out, the crowd was so confused. They didn't know whether to clap, boo, or pretend they didn't hear it. So they defaulted to what they always do, booing something they don't understand. Classic. You could see it all over Sunny's face. She realized what she'd just said, and for a brief moment, you could see the panic set in. Like she knew she had just broken the unspoken rule of daytime television. Never say anything that even remotely sounds like praise for RFK or criticism of the establishment. And the rest of the panel, it was like they were trying to process it in real time. Whoopi shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Joy Behar looked like she had just swallowed a lemon. Anna Navarro was scanning the teleprompter. Like maybe, there was a script on how to handle this kind of slip-up. Spoiler alert, there wasn't. The funniest part? The audience. You could hear the hesitation in their reaction. The knee-jerk instinct to boo kicked in, but there was this awkward pause like their brains were lagging, because for a split second, they probably thought, wait, do we agree with that? But instead of thinking too hard, they just went with the safest option, mindless outrage. Sunny tried to backpedal immediately, but it was too late. The damage was done. She had just validated RFK in front of an audience trained to treat him like some kind of political boogeyman, and no matter how quickly she tried to move past it, that moment was already out there, floating around the internet, destined to be clipped, memed, and replayed over and over again. And that's the thing about The View. These hosts get so caught up in their rehearsed talking points that the second they step even slightly outside of them, they don't know how to recover. They're not having real conversations, they're reciting a script. And if you go off script, even for a second, the machine breaks down. It's the same reason they react with complete hysteria when a guest with an opposing viewpoint pushes back. They're not prepared for it, they don't actually debate. They gang up, shout down, and then pat themselves on the back for winning an argument they never actually had. So, when Sunny accidentally says something that makes sense, it exposes how robotic the whole operation is. It's not about critical thinking, it's about loyalty to the narrative. And the second you deviate even slightly, you get the boos. That's why RFK makes them nervous. Not because he's some radical extremist, but because he refuses to stick to the script. And for a moment, just a moment, Sunny Hostin forgot hers. Wait, what do you mean? You've told us he was a bad guy. Why would you say he's the guy to fix this? You could tell she was trying to say it sarcastically. And then halfway through, she realizes, oops, damn it, I made some sense. Now I look like an idiot. That's why part of me can't really tell. Is Sunny Hostin actually that stupid, or is it just performative? Let me know what you guys think down below, because some of the things she says, it's almost difficult to reach that level of stupidity. Now, the outrage over Trump winning is certainly not limited to The View. Here's Scott Jennings having to school a CNN panel on why Trump's tariff threats led to a huge win. Like, the liberal media is in such denial that they're trying to run with, oh, Trump didn't get anything. These countries already promised to do this stuff. Mexico already had troops at the border. Well, did they actually? Or did they just tell the Biden White House that they were doing it? Because when they reported that in 2021, that was at the very height of the immigration crisis.
Trump got rolled by both of these countries, and no one, least of all Trump, seems to have realized it. Both the leaders of Mexico and Canada have agreed to do what they have already been doing. It's just that Trump didn't seem to know about it.
Both Mexico and Canada have reached agreements today with Donald Trump to do what we want them to do, which is to put people and technology and resources at the border to stop the flow of people and drugs, illegal immigration, stem the tide. That is the whole point of this exercise. And that is apparently what is happening. And yes, there have been some troops there in Mexico. This is an agreement to do permanent deployment. And yes, some of this stuff in Canada was already announced, but now they were dragging their feet. Now their feet are held to the fire. They've got 30 days to really implement, and they can't pussyfoot around anymore. So the point of this exercise today, to me, had less to do with trade and more to do with saying to our neighbors, you need to be better neighbors.
So were those soldiers really there? And were they really doing their job? Or did they know that the United States had a weak, spineless president, and they could just tell him some fluff, and he'd get off their back? And then Canada, oh, they already promised to spend some money. Trump didn't get anything new. I equate it to this kind of example. Your mom comes in and asks you to clean your room. You say, okay, Mom, I will. She comes back 2 hours later. It's still not clean. She says, can you clean your room? You say, okay, yeah, I will, I promise. She comes back 3 hours later. The room still isn't clean. You say, no, Mom, I am committing to cleaning my room. That's Canada. That's Mexico. They promised to do something before, but they never actually did it. Trump comes in, puts his foot down, and suddenly things start moving. But the media doesn't want to admit that because it would mean admitting Trump was right, and they just can't do that. I promise you I will clean it. And 3 hours later, your dad comes home, leather belt in hand, barges into your door, takes your phone, takes your video games, takes your TV, turns off the lights, gives you a candle and the Holy Bible to read, and says, this is going to be your life if you don't clean your room. That is what Trump did. Oh yeah, you can announce you're going to spend $1.3 billion, but when are you going to spend it? When are you going to implement it? And on top of that, they added a $200 million extra in spending and a joint task force with the US. That just illustrates even more why Canada and Mexico are bad partners. Why did it take Trump threatening to crash your economy for you guys to actually just help and do what you said you would do? Again, these Democrats don't live in the real world. They live in a delusional, made-up utopia in their heads where world leaders ask nicely for things to get done, and other world leaders just happily accept because kumbaya and unity. Instead of opening their eyes and realizing, no, Canada and Mexico were slow-walking doing anything about this. And now Trump has held their feet to the fire and said, if you don't make some serious progress in the next 30 days, it's economy down the toilet time for you. And I guess I wish he didn't have to do that, but if that's what our neighbors are forcing him to do, then so be it. It's America first. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Turn on those notification bells so you never miss a video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.